Tonight on Free Minds TV, we're looking at vaccinating the entire population, posting inflammatory information may be a crime, and guess which governor hates sick people. All that and more tonight on Free Minds TV.
And welcome to a brand new episode of Free Minds TV. It is episode 118, and it's Toby here with you.
And Nick.
We have a lot to get into. We are going to be getting into some latest news about the Obama administration, as well as some local news about medical marijuana here in New Hampshire in the second part of the show. But first, I wanted to focus in on something that's going on in Pennsylvania. And this is something I don't think we've ever really touched on Free Minds TV before, but it has to do with, say, your parents get sick, they have to go into a nursing home, and they run out of money. Whose job is it to foot the bill? What if you didn't have any kind of a relationship with your parents? If you've been separated for years since you've talked, you didn't even know they were in a nursing home. Well, in Pennsylvania, they're starting to say, well, if the adult owes money, the adult child will pay. So if your parents find themselves getting into some medical bills or nursing home bills or any other kind of bills, and they don't have the money to pay for it, in Pennsylvania, they're starting to sue people and say that it is up to the adult child to pay. This is causing a lot of havoc on a lot of people who some of them didn't even know their parents were in nursing homes, had been completely cut off from them, and then their parents move on, they die, they pass away, or something else happens, they can't pay the bill, and they're being sued, and their credit scores are being affected, and they're having to pay up literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases because their parents couldn't foot the bill. So Nick, the question is, if your parents owe money and they don't have the money to pay for it, who's responsible?
Well, one would assume the people who actually racked up all that debt were responsible, so my parents would be responsible. And I wasn't even aware that, I had never heard about this being applied. I did read the article quickly, and from what I'm hearing, it's a very old law. It goes back, the legal precedent that they're using here goes back to, I think, Elizabethan England.
Yeah, it predates colonial law. It's a law that's been on the books for a very long time. It's something that it's a noble thing to do to pay your parents' debts, and it's a very old law. It's only recently that lawyers are starting to bring these cases to civil court. I guess there's a number of lawyers who specialize in this one industry type. That's what they do, and that's how they make their money, is representing nursing homes, representing hospitals, and going after the adult children of deadbeat parents who rack up the bills. Now, I think that there is a difference between this and, say, if I put my mother in a nursing home and I'm signing the paperwork and I'm putting her in there, well, but then I would be owing the money. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about parents who are putting themselves in hospitals, checking themselves into nursing homes, and not paying the bills, and then the nursing homes and the hospitals are expecting the children to pay for it.
So what do they do with a kid who's adopted? Does it go, I'm assuming it goes with your biological parent?
It's such a weird situation, because personally I have a great relationship with my parents, and I would be footing the bill if they needed anything as an adult and I had to put them away or something. I would take that responsibility, but I know that my family is not the same as every other family out there. A lot of people are estranged. They don't necessarily get along with their parents. They don't have anything to do with them.
Even if they do, I'm not necessarily sure it's fair to ask a child, even if that child's grown up, to pay for an adult parent's bills. It really doesn't make sense to me, especially since you're essentially wrecking the credit score and the finances of a younger person who theoretically is being responsible with their money. We can presume that they're not racking up massive debts on their own. So you're essentially ruining their lives because of what someone else did. Even if they're related to the people, it shouldn't make a difference. You shouldn't be held accountable for what somebody else does.
Yeah, if you didn't sign the paperwork, if it's not agreeing to pay these bills, how can you be responsible? And how can the law hold up that if someone else is racking up debt that has nothing to do with you, how can the law hold up and say that you're responsible for that? It would be nice if people took care of their parents, but the world doesn't always work that way. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, it seems like an outrageous law.
Oh, and it should be noted that the courts and lawyers are going after people in different states. So this is a Pennsylvania law that if people in Pennsylvania, the old people are there, that say I live in New Hampshire, didn't even know my parents were in Pennsylvania, I would still be responsible, and they're going out of state even.
It's a concern to anybody conceivably in the country if they have
parents in Pennsylvania. So if you have old folks, I guess
what
move
about
them out of
grandparents?
Pennsylvania.
Why don't Why don't they extend it to grandparents?
That's a good question. They may. Who knows? I mean, if the parents aren't there, is the grandchild responsible? It's a good question. Anyways, we do have to move on. We have a lot more to get to. I wanted to get into an article that you actually blogged about up on our website at freemindsmedia.org. You blogged about online free speech and one of Obama's newest appointees.
Yeah, and one of this new appointee that I'm talking about here, his name is Cass Sunstein, and he's Obama's nominee to head the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. It's a pretty obscure office, but they do have quite a bit of power. And he would be in a position to make decisions about regulating some things that are done online. And the reason it's of concern is that he has written a book about, on rumors, how falsehoods spread, why we believe them, and what can be done, which basically lays out his philosophy about inflammatory speech online. And he believes that the internet is a very dangerous vehicle for speech because people, the internet can act as an echo chamber, in his opinion, and you have social networks, so people kind of get into this loop of certain websites that they'll read or go to certain blogs, and if people are publishing false information or damaging information, people might actually believe it. That's his concern. Of course, people have always stuck to a handful of news sources, even when it was only print newspaper or a couple of radio stations in town. You could have made that same argument. I actually think there was more danger of believing falsehoods when you didn't have open access to millions of different websites that can offer varying opinions. So I think it was harder to check facts, say, 20 years ago than it is today. But what he wants to do here is expand the definition of libel and basically make anybody a target for libel who's writing a blog or some kind of an article online or publishing a regular news article on the internet. And if there's information in there that's false or damaging to someone, even if it's a public official, like a politician, to expand the definition of libel so that those people can be gone after.
Now, Nick, this is it's almost like opening up Pandora's box here, because we've talked about articles, I think it's in Massachusetts, I could be wrong, but we talked about an article that one of the courts ruled that even if you're talking about truthful information, it can be considered libel, or if you're printing up something that's truthful about someone and it hurts their reputation, even though it's true, you can still be sued over it for libel. That wouldn't be a crime, that would be a civil lawsuit in that case. But this is opening up a can of worms about, what about people posting comments on your blog? If you run a blog, are you responsible for the comments that people are posting there?
Sunstein actually does mention in that book that he believes that people should be held accountable for what commenters post.
So I'm supposed to go, I type up a blog article and people make comments. I'm supposed to sit there all day reading the comments? I mean, sometimes comments run into hundreds or even thousands, and I'm supposed to go through this, sift through each one and make sure it's factual?
That's what he's proposing here. So I think he knows very well that this will have a chilling effect on free speech, and quite honestly, he's a political appointee. I mean, he's part of a presidential administration. They're going to have the ability to go after people if they're posting information, whether it's true or not. If the administration or a particular politician doesn't like what you have to say, whether it's true or not, they can make the claim that it's libelous and then drag you into court. And it's going to have a chilling effect on what bloggers and reporters are willing to write. And it's just going to have a chilling effect on free speech.
Absolutely. It's nothing that's any good. And for the people who were Obama supporters thinking that he's going to bring back these civil liberties, I mean, this isn't making me feel good at all.
It's a step in the wrong direction, because today it is very difficult for a public official or a celebrity, anybody who's in the public eye, to come after you for libel. It's very difficult for them to do that, and it should be, because they are public people, they're public officials, and what they do should be open to debate. And if something is said that, even if it's not true or hurts their feelings, I don't think that should be a matter for criminal or civil court.
And then this tackled on with other politicians out there just ready to make it a crime to say anything that's hurting someone's feelings or something that doesn't jive with a certain political group. I mean, it's really opening up a can of worms that could spread like a virus in other parts of the legislature.
Yeah, I mean, it's very concerning, because we're seeing a push to do away with cyberbullying, which is any kind of impolite or nasty comment online. So it doesn't even have to be a real threat.
Write a comment that said your video sucked and now I'm cyberbullying someone.
Right, and so some people want to see that be made into a crime. Some people would like to see the definition of libel expanded. So overall, there's just this effort to crack down on freedom of speech. And the fact of the matter is, even if speech is offensive, even if it hurts your feelings, you have no right to be protected from that kind of speech.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what the First Amendment was designed to protect.
You do not have the right not to be offended. Anyways, we do have to move on, going back in time a little bit when we were talking about this because it was all over the media, but it's coming back. Nick, you have the latest about swine flu and vaccinating the entire population.
Yep, but this article actually deals with vaccinating the entire population of the United Kingdom, not the United States. The United Kingdom is preparing plans for a massive swine flu vaccination campaign of all the nation's residents. The U.S. government is planning to spend another $1 billion on flu vaccinations, and the Obama administration did release a statement saying that the American people should be prepared for a more severe resurgence of swine flu this fall, which is probably true. There's usually a second wave with influenza. Although 15 citizens, those are the only people who have died in the UK from this virus, and a lot of people have concerns about what the vaccinations will actually do.
Right, we talked a lot about this on the last episode of Free Minds Radio, how vaccinations, they can be very good, but there's always side effects. So there actually has to be a real problem with a real danger of being killed or something like from dying from a certain flu or an infection in order to vaccinate people, because there's always a percentage of people that can get really sick or even die when they're being vaccinated. So if you're talking about vaccinating a population of 1 million people, and even if only 0.02% of those people have a negative reaction, is that more harmful than the swine flu would be without the vaccination?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, because according to this report here, about 10,000 UK residents have been infected with the H1N1 strain, but only 15 have died. So your odds there are a little bit more than 1 in 1,000 of dying if you're actually infected. So the virus itself is not that dangerous, but as this article points out, a mass vaccination campaign was attempted in the United States against swine flu back in the 1970s, because swine flu is not new. This is a new strain, but swine flu's been around for a long time, and it was halted after some people were suffering from Guillain-Barré syndrome, which was actually a disorder of the nervous system. But that's probably one of the more obscure side effects you get from a vaccine. A lot of people would probably just come down with flu-like symptoms. I mean, that happens every year when people get regular flu shots for the seasonal flu, is that they'll come down with flu-like symptoms, because the vaccine's essentially a weakened form of the virus itself. You're developing immunity that way. So vaccines can be more dangerous than the diseases they're designed to prevent.
Now, right now, we don't know if this is going to be forced vaccination. We do know that they're ordering up enough vaccines for the entire population in the UK. There are grumblings about how this could be possibly forced, which would be an entirely different story we'd be talking about, and we will be bringing you the latest on that. But for now, we do need to move on, Nick. We're short on time. We've got to get into the downsizer dispatch, let people know how they can contact their representatives, so-called representatives in Washington, D.C., and tell them how they feel. What's on tap this week?
Well, Downsize DC did have quite a bit of success raising money for a fund to file a Supreme Court brief on FEC campaign finance rules. Essentially, they're going to try to put together a court case where they can challenge the campaign finance laws, because they're very restrictive on political speech and political donations, and I think that's a positive thing. And they're also talking about the fact that some politicians in Washington are reacting to the fact that the stimulus money that's been spent so far hasn't been very effective, by proposing a second round of stimulus, spending even more money. And one can imagine what that might do to the U.S. economy, while at the same time there's an attempt to implement a cap-and-trade system on carbon, a national health care system, and we have unfunded liabilities on Social Security and Medicare. They're starting to come due. I mean, it's just a tsunami of debt, and I think a lot of damage has already been done with the first round of stimulus. And a second stimulus would probably just push us over the edge, in my opinion. But you can go to downsizedc.org and contact your elected officials in Washington, let them know how you feel, and they actually do have a campaign to cut spending, a general cut spending campaign.
Good luck on that.
downsizedc.org.
That would be nice, but you know those politicians, they do like to spend money.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree with you, but I think at this point, even some politicians might be reined in from spending even more money on the second round of stimulus. There was some controversy about the first.
True.
It hasn't.
Well, it's really the third because Bush had one, then Obama had one. So this would really not be the second. This would really be the third in the last year, not fiscal
the third
year,
shot.
but
I mean,
the last
the
year.
first two didn't work. Unemployment's continuing to climb.
And then if you count the bank one, that's even more. But anyways, politicians, they're going to waste all our money, and eventually they'll be forced to stop when they rack up too much debt. I mean, we're at, what, almost 12 trillion now. Can't go on forever. The credit cards eventually come due. Anyways, we do have to move on, take a little break, but when we come back, we're going to be getting into more free speech issues, more Obama issues, and which governor hates sick people. All that and more. Stay tuned. This is Free Minds TV. Free Minds TV is brought to you in part by Life Productions for your basic and semi-pro video production needs. From full wedding and event coverage to DVD authoring and distributions, lifeproductions.com. That's lyfproductions.com.
Am I on? Am I on? Hey, do I talk now? Do I talk now? I'm Gardner Goldsmith.
She's here.
And
I think she's up by where they're doing the show.
You're watching Free Minds TV. Open your mind, baby. Tell others to do the same.
And welcome back to Free Minds TV. It is Toby here with you.
And Nick.
All right, we got to move along here and get into some video. We will be talking about the decrim bill in New Hampshire. Yes, it is New Hampshire that has the governor who hates 6 people. We'll bring you the details on that. But first, I wanted to get into a video that I stumbled across on the intertubes, the tubes of webs that connect computers together. I stumbled across a video from Newark, New Jersey, where they're trying a new approach to get guns off the street. Let's take a look at the video quick, and then we'll talk about it.
Hi, I'm Mayor Cory Booker, and I, like so many in our city, are just saying enough. There are a small group of people in our city that think they can walk around with guns. It is unacceptable. But we can't just wish this will stop. We can't just hope this will stop. We as individuals have to do something about it. So we have a program in our city right now that's completely anonymous, and we will give you cash, $1,000, to anyone who calls our anonymous tip line. Give us the information about who is carrying a gun. If we don't even have to have a conviction, if we arrest that individual and simply get that gun off the streets, you call back, get your second group of digits, go to a bank or send somebody to a bank, and they will give you $1,000 in cash, no question asked. This is the best program in the country. A quick $1,000 for a little bit of information to help us keep our city and our communities even more safe. Step up, stand up. Let's get these guns off our street. $1,000. Thank you.
So we have a mayor here who is going to be offering tax dollars for anyone who wants to snitch out on their neighbor who has an unregistered firearm, and then they're going to use those tax dollars to pay them $1,000 reward for snitching out your neighbor. Now, if I was a New Jersey resident, I would be very upset about this because personally I'm someone who thinks that a well-armed populace is a very good thing. It keeps things safer. If you look at the numbers, you look at the statistics, places that ban guns have way more violent crime.
Like New Jersey. New Jersey does not have a low violent crime rate, but they have some of the strictest gun control laws in the country.
Right, and so now you have the mayor here offering up $1,000 reward for anonymously turning in your neighbor if they have an unregistered firearm.
And I'm sure there are a lot of unregistered firearms in the state of New Jersey too, because people just can't afford the time and the money to go through the process to get firearms registered in the state. Like that's the same in New York, and specifically New York City. A lot of people who people would consider respectable citizens are carrying unregistered firearms or have them in their home because it takes well over a year to actually get approved in some cases, and you have to spend a lot of money to do so. And you can be denied for pretty much any reason they want to come up with.
So it's very hard to register a gun, so a lot of people have unregistered guns, and well, now here's a perfect opportunity to turn in your neighbor, become a snitch, and earn yourself $1,000 of Well, blood money, tax money. It's disgusting, you ask me, but what are you going to do? At least we're not in New Jersey. We're in a somewhat freer state of New Hampshire. Hopefully freer in the future, but not if Governor Lynch has his way. Yes, the governor of New Hampshire apparently hates sick people. This disgusting information, I know we're a week late on reporting it. The day the show came out, it's not recorded live the same day. So the day the show came out last Friday, Governor Lynch vetoed House Bill, I think it's 648, which is medical marijuana for sick and dying people in New Hampshire. Now, this was a very watered-down bill. It would have only affected a few hundred people here in the state of New Hampshire, would have set up state dispensaries, so the legislature did everything the governor asked for, watered down a bill to make it almost nothing, and yet he still said, no, people who are sick, people who are throwing up their medicine, people who are dying of AIDS, dying of cancer, cannot have the relief they deserve. Governor Lynch, there is a very special place in hell made for you. It's disgusting, Nick. I mean, what are you going to do? We have over 70% of New Hampshire residents want this bill passed. A supermajority in the legislature.
Well, in the House.
In the House. The Senate is 2 votes over. That's the problem, though. This bill is not completely dead. In September, they're going to meet again. There could be an override. There already is one in the House. They need 2 votes or 2 people to stay home that day, and they may have it in the fall. But like I said, it's such a watered-down bill. People in New Hampshire are ready for decrim. A majority of people in New Hampshire think that marijuana needs to be decriminalized. A supermajority think that sick and dying people should be allowed to use it. And yet we have a dirtbag governor who cares more about his political correct friendships with his police buddies than he does helping out sick people. Man, I called him up. I left him some very nasty messages because it just made me feel good. I got off the phone and Brenna was like, what are you doing? He's going to think that you're an immature idiot. But you know what? This man doesn't care. He's never going to be on my side on this one. He hates sick people. He thinks it's okay if they die and they suffer. Personally, I say call him up, swear at him.
If he didn't vote for this bill, he's not going to vote for any bill.
Right, exactly. So
until the Senate has the votes to override
it
him,
felt so good to send him nasty emails and nasty voice messages. If you'd like to, the number's up on the screen. Call him. Tell him he's a dirtbag. Tell him, yeah. Anyways, I can't swear here. I had too much time editing it out, but it made me feel good. Anyways, we do have to move along from that. We'll report more this fall about the possible Senate and House override. Maybe something will come of that. But what we really need is some real drug reform, not just medical marijuana.
Well, I mean, this bill wouldn't have done much for most
It wouldn't have done much. It would have been just pretty much a picture. But what are you going to do? Governor hates sick people, can't do much. Anyways, we do have to pick on Obama again. We did a little bit at the first segment. Now we have to do it a little bit more. Can't stick it all together because people can't think we're just anti-Obama. We're pretty much anti-big government, and that's what Obama is doing.
Right, and with the stimulus money that's being spent, we're seeing a trend that usually develops when you have government in control of spending. And that's that politicians in control of that money tend to reward their friends who help get them elected. Now, usually we see this done with politicians giving money to special interest groups who contribute a lot of money to their campaigns and help get them elected. But what we're seeing with the spending of the stimulus money that's been spent so far is that it's not just special interests that helped Obama get elected. It's also the counties that helped him get elected are getting significantly more money than the counties that voted for his opponent, John McCain. And this study is coming from USA Today is where the study is coming from. I do like to cite our sources. The report shows that the 872 counties that supported Obama received about $69 per person so far in this stimulus money, whereas on average, the over 2,000 counties that supported McCain received about $34. So you're looking at roughly double the amount of dollars going to counties that voted for Barack Obama. So the blue counties are getting about double the money as the red counties.
Oh, now, isn't that nice?
Now, to be fair,
my side is the winner. You're the loser.
Yes. Well, I mean, we're all the loser because we're all incurring debt to pay off this money. I mean, it'd be better if this money weren't being spent at all. But we are seeing an unequal distribution of what's been spent so far. And of course, the administration is claiming that, well, we haven't spent all the money yet. In fact, we haven't spent a lot of the money yet. And this is just a coincidence.
It's a coinky-dink.
Maybe, maybe
it'll work itself out in the end.
And possibly part of that is, part of the factor is that more urban areas do tend to lean more to the political left, and theoretically there might be more infrastructure to work on there. So I'm just going to play devil's advocate there, but my feeling is this is just politics as usual, where when one party wins,
reward your friends,
it's
and
going to
punish
reward
your
its
enemies.
base and punish people who aren't in their base.
What did we expect? I expected no different, Nick. Not a huge surprise at all. Disgusting, but unfortunately not a survive. All right, surprise. We've got one more story we do have to get into before we let you go. This one coming from Wisconsin. It's a little bit late. This story took place on the 4th of July, where a man by the name of Conjean, Mr. Conjean, he decided to fly his American flag upside down as a signal of distress. Now, this Iraq war veteran, he served in 2004, thought that he was fighting a tyrannical government in Iraq, but when he came home, he found matters were even worse at home. So he decided to fly his flag upside down as it's a distress signal. It's widely recognized as a distress signal. It doesn't only have to be the American flag. Whatever flag you're flying, if you fly it upside down, it's a sign of distress.
Not so useful if you're a French person.
No, not so.
It's the same.
Oh yeah, good point. So if you're French and you're at sea and you're in distress, I guess you're screwed.
I've always wondered about that, but
it's
completely irrelevant.
It's usually used at sea, as far as I understand. You fly it at sea, it means you're in distress. People help you out. People have used it as a political move to say the country's in distress, so I'm going to fly the flag upside down. He said that the country was in distress because after spending over $200,000 of his own money to renovate and open up what he thought would be a very nice Italian supper club, he thought that he would open it up and get a liquor license and be able to sell some beers and wines in his new restaurant that he spent $200,000 remodeling. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, the town in Wisconsin, Wausau, I don't know how to say it.
I think it might be Wausau.
Wausau, Wisconsin, they denied him his liquor license. The small town of about 1,000 said no, and so he flew his flag upside down. Well, on the 4th of July, when there was this huge happy parade going on, police showed up at his house, went on his property, and took down his flag and took it away with them. He asked him what they were doing. They said, none of your business. The next day, the police brought his flag back after the parade was over, and he's supposed to go on with his life with no problems. Well, he's contacted the ACLU. He's thinking about suing the police department, but they claim they've done nothing wrong. They say while it's not a crime to fly a flag upside down as a form of freedom of speech, it is a crime to create distress. And other people were very distressed by this, Nick. So if he's creating too much distress, a disruption. So if there's a disruption from his flag, well, now he's a criminal?
The protest isn't effective unless it's disruptive. And that's, I think it gets back to what we were talking about earlier with free speech. If what you're saying is offending people or disrupting people, I mean, some people will draw the line that you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. But this is clearly political speech. If people don't like it, well, tough cookies. I mean, that's the point of protest, is to make people think and confront the status quo. If you aren't free to cause a disruption or make a scene, there is no point in protesting.
And Nick, don't worry. The president of the village, John Descharnes, says it's fine if he wants to protest. He just needs to do it in a different way. That's going to do it for us. We're out of time. You can log on to our website. freemindsmedia.org is the website address we'd like you to use, but Freeminds TV will work as well. Just trying to make that switch over. There's all kinds of stuff on there. Archives of the show, the radio side blogs, the Liberty News Roundup, and a whole lot more ways you can help the show. freemindsmedia.org. It's been Toby here with you.
And Nick.
Until next week, take it easy. Well,